Hey, everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. You know, today we're going to be looking at something that's super important for community-based organizations.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Finance policy manuals.
Yeah.
We're going to figure out why they're so essential and how to create one that's actually, useful and not just something that sits on the shelf.
Right.
And to help us out with this, we're going to be taking some inspiration from the Southern Africa Litigation Centre. You might know them as SALC.
Yes.
They're a human rights organization.
Yeah.
And they've got this fantastic guide for CBOs on this very topic. So,
What I think is so fascinating about this is that finance policy manuals are about so much more than just the numbers, right? It's
Yeah.
really the foundation of good governance and transparency and long-term sustainability for CBOs.
okay, yeah. I get that it's important, but I think for a lot of people, when they hear finance manual, their eyes kind of glaze over a little bit,
Yeah.
So how do we make sure this isn't just another boring document that ends up gathering dust on a shelf?
Well, that's what we're here to do, right? We're going to break it down and really show you how this can be a useful tool for CBOs. It's like your organization's financial GPS.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, guiding you toward responsible and effective money management.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is the Finance Policy Manual?
So at its core, it's a roadmap for how your organization handles finances.
Okay.
It outlines the rules and procedures for everything from budgeting and spending to reporting and preventing fraud.
Got it.
Imagine trying to build a house without a blueprint.
Yeah.
Chaos, right?
Total chaos.
That's what it's like running a CBO without a finance policy manual.
Okay, so that's a great analogy. I'm starting to see the light here, but why do CBOs in particular need this? Can't they just, figure it out as they go?
Well, while go with the flow approach might work in some areas of life,
Yeah.
when it comes to finances, especially for organizations working with, sometimes limited resources and trying to make a big impact,
Right.
it's really important to have this in place.
So what are the advantages?
Well, one of the biggest advantages is that it brings standardization to your financial practices.
Okay.
So imagine you've got new staff coming in or volunteers, a finance policy manual. Make sure that everyone, regardless of their experience, is on the same page when it comes to handling money.
Right.
This is really vital for smooth operations, especially when you think about the often high turnover rates we see in the nonprofit world.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a clear set of instructions that anyone can follow.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what else?
Well, think about all the grant applications and reports that you have to handle.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Funders want to see that you're managing their money responsibly and transparently.
Of course.
So a finance policy manual is proof that you have systems in place for accountability.
Okay.
And that can really be a game changer when you're trying to secure funding.
So it's not just about internal organization. It's about building trust with the outside world.
Absolutely.
And this leads directly into another huge benefit, and that's risk management.
Okay.
A well-structured manual can help you identify and mitigate any potential financial pitfalls that could really jeopardize your mission.
Right.
It's about being proactive and protecting your organization's resources.
I'm sold on the why now, when should a CBO create or revise its finance policy manual?
Yeah.
Is this a one and done kind of thing?
Ideally, you would start thinking about this from the very beginning.
Okay.
Lay the foundation for sound financial practices right from the get-go.
Right.
However, there are key moments when revisiting and updating your manual becomes really crucial.
Like what, for example?
Well, think about periods of significant growth.
Okay.
Or restructuring within your organization.
Right.
Or maybe you're facing some financial challenges.
Uh-huh.
That's a sign that it's time to review and maybe revamp your approach.
Got it.
And even just onboarding new staff members can trigger the need for a little bit of a refresh.
Okay.
So your finance policy manual should be a living document.
Right.
It needs to adapt to your organization's evolving needs and the ever-changing financial landscape.
So it's not about setting it and forgetting it.
No.
It's about keeping it alive and relevant.
Exactly.
Okay, so now I'm really curious about what actually goes into this manual.
Yeah.
What are the essential building blocks?
Well, let's dive into that. The SALC materials provide a clear breakdown of the key components.
Okay.
And we can unpack why each one matters for CBOs like yours.
Perfect. Let's break it down.
So first off, you need a solid introduction.
Okay.
This sets the stage by outlining the purpose of the manual and connecting it back to your organization's mission and goals.
Right.
You're essentially saying, this is why this document is so important for what we do.
That makes sense. Start with the why to give it context what comes next.
Next up is financial governance. This section is all about clarity and accountability. So it outlines who has the authority to make financial decisions within your organization, what that reporting structure looks like, and what checks and balances are in place.
Oh, okay. So it's like, defining who's who and who does what
Yeah.
when it comes to your finances.
Exactly. And speaking of running smoothly, we then move on to financial planning and budgeting.
Okay.
So this is really about how you plan for the future. How do you forecast your income? How do you decide where to allocate those precious resources?
Yeah.
It's about connecting the dots between your financial resources and your strategic goals and really making sure your spending aligns with your mission.
So crucial for CBOs.
Yeah.
Especially, making sure that they're sustainable in the long run, that they're making smart choices today so they can continue making an impact tomorrow.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about day-to-day operations with cash management.
Okay.
This is all about the nuts and bolts of how you handle money coming in and money going out, receiving donations, paying bills, making sure everything is done securely and efficiently.
It's the bread and butter, right? Keeping the lights on, making sure things run smoothly on a daily basis. So what's next?
Next, we have procurement and purchasing. So for CBOs, being responsible with every dollar is super important. This section lays out the procedures for acquiring the goods and services your organization needs.
Right.
Think everything from office supplies to program materials. Having a clear process in place ensures that purchases are made transparently, fairly, and with the best interests of the organization in mind.
This sounds especially important for maintaining accountability and avoiding even the appearance of any impropriety.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget about, the people working tirelessly to achieve your organization's goals. So that's where expense management comes in.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course, the staff.
Exactly. This section provides clear guidelines for staff expenses, such as travel training reimbursements. Everyone needs to be on the same page about what's allowed, what documentation is required, and how to get reimbursed properly.
So it's about setting clear expectations and making sure everyone is treated fairly and consistently. What about financial reporting?
Yes. Financial reporting. This is where you demonstrate transparency and accountability to the outside world. It's about how you track your finances and communicate your financial health to stakeholders, donors, board members, even the public. Accurate and timely reporting builds trust and shows your responsible stewardship of resources.
Transparency builds trust, and trust is essential for any CBO.
Couldn't agree more. Now, this next section is super critical for safeguarding your organization, and that's internal controls and fraud prevention.
Okay, this sounds important.
It is. It's about putting those safeguards in place to protect your assets and really prevent financial misconduct.
Yeah.
This includes things like separating duties, requiring multiple approvals for transactions, conducting regular audits.
Those sound like essential steps to maintaining the financial health and reputation of any CBO.
100%. Now, CBOs often have valuable assets beyond just cash.
Right.
And that's where asset management comes in.
Okay.
This section outlines how you manage the things your organization owns, from computers, vehicles, to program equipment.
Right.
Making sure that these assets are used wisely, maintained properly, and ultimately contribute to achieving your mission.
So it's about making the most of your resources, making sure that they're used effectively and responsibly, and thinking long-term. Is that where debt management and investments comes in?
Exactly. Sometimes organizations need to borrow money, or maybe they have the opportunity to invest funds. This section outlines the rules and procedures for handling these situations responsibly and strategically,
Okay.
making sure these financial decisions align with your long-term goals.
So it's about thinking ahead and planning for a sustainable future. It seems like all of these sections are interconnected. They create a comprehensive framework for responsible financial management.
Yeah, you're spot on. A good finance policy manual isn't just a collection of random rules. It's a holistic system that supports your mission and helps your CBO thrive.
That makes a lot of sense. What other key sections do we need to cover?
So we also need to think about compliance and ethics. This section emphasizes the importance of ethical financial practices, which is crucial for CBOs.
Yeah.
Because you rely on public trust and donor funding.
Right.
It goes beyond just meeting legal requirements. It's about, doing the right thing even when no one is watching.
Absolutely.
This builds confidence among your supporters and strengthens your organization's reputation.
It sounds like integrity is at the heart of this section. Walking the walks, not just talking the talk. So what comes next?
Well, regulations change and best practices evolve, so your finance policy manual needs to keep pace, and that's where the review and revision section comes in.
Yep.
This outlines a clear process for keeping your manual up to date.
Got it.
This might involve, Regular check-ins, feedback from staff, incorporating changes in laws or funding requirements.
So it's a living document. It's constantly evolving to meet the needs of your organization and the external environment.
Exactly.
Okay, what's the final piece of the puzzle?
Last but certainly not least, we have record keeping and document retention.
Oh, yeah.
This section specifies which financial documents need to be kept for how long and how they should be stored. This ensures you have a clear and organized paper trail, which is, essential for audits, transparency, and even just day-to-day operations.
Yeah, it's all about being organized and accountable, which makes everything run more smoothly. What's really striking me about all of this is how practical it is. It's not just theory. It's a blueprint for success. Having the right policies in place can really protect your organization and make a difference in your ability to achieve your mission. It's like having that safety net that catches you before you fall.
Exactly. It's about setting yourself up for success.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of why finance policy manuals are so essential for CBOs.
That's great to hear. Just remember, a strong financial foundation really allows you to focus on what matters most, making a positive impact in your community.
So as we wrap up, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember about finance policy manuals?
I think, first and foremost, they're not just about numbers. They're about building a strong and sustainable organization that can effectively achieve its mission. It's about transparency, accountability, and responsible stewardship of resources.
And it's not a one-time task. It's an ongoing process of review and revision to make sure it stays relevant and effective.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about creating a culture of financial responsibility within your organization.
To all our listeners out there working tirelessly for their CBOs, here's a thought-provoking question to leave you with. What's one action you can take this week to start strengthening your organization's financial foundation? Maybe it's gathering your team to brainstorm some key elements for your manual.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's reaching out to another CBO that has a really solid financial system in place and learning from their experience.
Even small steps can lead to big changes over time.
Absolutely.
Remember, building a strong finance policy manual is an investment in your organization's future and its ability to make a lasting impact.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been a really valuable deep dive. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. We hope this episode has empowered you to create a brighter and more sustainable future for your CBOs. Keep on diving.